It was 8 months ago, on New Year's Day, quite possibly one of the happiest days of my life, when I walked through this doorway knowing that a treasure lied in these ruins. And I was here to unearth it. A gem I was, a long, long time ago, lucky to have enjoyed. And yes, the twists and turns of life out there over the past 50 years prepared me with the skills and courage to dig it up. But it was its beauty that is forever etched in my childhood memories, what lit and brightened my journey back. A dream of mine that goes back longer than I can remember. But claiming this place my own, that was neither fast nor easy. It took at least 25 years. What was easy was the decision to drop everything once my name was on the title. To get here as soon as possible, start working, to scale the rocky layers and polish it back to the jewel that I remember. It was early January, and I was so excited to get started on the work. It had been a long time coming. It was going to be my first winter here in 37 years. I had no idea what to expect. But what a contrast it was from the white Canadian winters of most of my life. Plenty of rainy days, which made everything very green, but with lots of sunny and warm breaks. I was fortunate to have my son Isaac over from Canada to help me for a while. We got straight to work clearing the decades-long overgrowth. I honor my ancestors, their lifestyle, the work that they put into this place. It's a kind of prime directive that will guide how I'm going to rebuild the homestead. My grandparents lived in an era of scarcity. Nothing went to waste back then. And although we now live in an era of abundance, I think it's still a good idea to conserve what are sustainable resources. As such, we saved as much firewood as we could. I think we saved enough for a couple of winters. We also turned all smaller branches and brush into wood chips. We want to use them later on as mulch around the garden, around the fruit trees, around the property in general. It's such a great resource to have. We also collected wheelbarrows of rocks from around the property. We are going to use them as building materials in many
My
projects
grandfather
around
used to
homestead.
tell me where there was water here in the property. He never had a water well because there's a spring which is public but drains into a pond on the property. But I remember where he would say that there was water. And I indicated that spot to the person who was going to dig the well. And sure enough, there was water at that very spot at only 5 meters of depth. Once we had most of the overgrowth cleared around the property, we took on the ivy that was literally covering the house ruins. This has been growing up and over these walls for the last 4 or 5 decades. some of it literally like trees already. My grandparents didn't have an outbuilding here in the homestead. There was a wine cellar, root cellar that was attached to the house. And there was an animal shelter that was also part of the house. It was the lower level of the two-story structure. And there was a lean-to, just a covered area with one wall where my grandfather had his workshop, where the oxen cart would park and where my grandfather would make the wine. I decided to build a new multi-purpose outbuilding, something that would be a garden shed, a workshop, a power room, and a hen house. All of that for efficiency and to make the homestead productive. As soon as the construction crew arrived to get going on the new outbuilding, we decided to also get our feet wet and put some of those rocks that we collected around to good use. We started by building a retaining wall. Making the land productive once again is a key aspect of this project for me. For that, I'm making substantial investments in support infrastructure. The third time that we had the excavator over, he dug the cavity for the future gravity irrigation tank. He also took down fairly large chestnut trees that grew a little too close to the house for the last 40 or so years, ever since the property was pretty much abandoned. Chestnut trees do grow pretty fast. We are saving all of it, from the root stump to the small branches for mulch and the trunk that we cut into good size slabs of chestnut that is pretty much furniture quality. He also dug the future duck pond in the bird run area that is designed to collect all the water from the various roofs. He helped me to pull quite a few grapevine pergola granite posts. We are going to repurpose them for a lot of different projects around the farmstead. He helped me to install some of them to make the fence for the future bird run. I want to raise birds of several species. For that, I am building a dedicated area with multiple hen houses, a duck pond, and plenty of pasture to roam free and safe. Around mid-February, the weather warmed up. My wife finally arrived with a dog, and with that extra help, I started a garden. We built some raised beds. We went out. We bought a selection of seedlings, and we plucked them down. Perhaps a little too early, but that's what I needed in order to understand this growing climate that is new to me. It was great to have my wife finally over and to have my son here at the same time, both of them helping me. This is not their project. They have their own projects, but when they can and do help me, it's great, and I really appreciate it. I also enjoy working on it on my own. It's at those times that my childhood memories resurface.
when I remember details of the homestead and how it functioned. When you work with real heavy pieces of stone, there's only so many ways you can do the job. So we had the excavator back once again to move the big post from the corner of the lean-to and to move and install the new granite stone posts for the chicken yard gates. One of the things I was eager and excited to get going on was rebuilding the only covered area that my grandparents had in the homestead, the lean-to, that is now only a wall. Only the wall is remaining of that. The roof structure, everything's gone decades ago. And then this corner was in bad shape. It had that big stone post that was there initially to raise the wire system for the courtyard on the other side of the wall. This wire system basically supported the 3 grapevines that would cover the courtyard. I decided against the post because I'm now only keeping one of the grapevines. So the pergola is going to be smaller, and so it doesn't require that tall post there. Also allowing me to make the roof of the lean-to to extend all the way to the very end of the wall. Repairing the wall of the lean-to used most of the time of the next few weeks. Isaac was gone back to Canada, the weather was great, and Amor was helping me. I have to say that for an artist, she'll do the most mundane tasks with such gusto. Something I can only admire. Spring was fast approaching, and I needed to see the ancient infrastructure that I remember from my childhood days. I needed to see it working once again. I took on clearing the spring pond and the irrigation channels. If it worked for my grandparents, I was very sure it would work for me. Of course, that every chance I had, I'd escape to work on the house. I just had to see the walls without that dreadful ivy cover. Little did I know how long that was going to take me. And spring was officially here. My very first spring here in 37 years.
What? First strawberry of the season.
I asked João, the oldest in the construction crew, to come work on the house to build me a stone wall connecting the house to the side road wall. I needed him to build me a double face wall where the face facing the road as well the face of the wall facing the backyard are both nicely finished. I stayed busy around him. I helped them here and there. I went up and down the ladder, cleaning the vegetation off of the house walls, mainly because I wanted to see how he does what he does. I wanted to learn a little bit about his craft of working the stone. He was quite nice. I listened to his whistling. Kind of reminded me of the spring birds who always sing the same, but are pleasant to listen to. Luis was back once again with the excavator, this time to dig a pretty good sized trench along the front of the house facing the road so that we could clean the wall and waterproof it. I also took a couple of guys away from the construction of the outbuilding to help me install the gates for the animal paddock. More spring fruits are coming online, and yes, besides all the building and rebuilding construction work, I'm always doing a little work here and there in preparation to make the land productive once again. We did a bit of work on the future gravity irrigation tank, setting up the base. We continue to work on the waterproofing of the wall of the house that faces the road. And yes, I'm always going back to those walls and the ivy that grows on them. An ever-ending job of cleaning the stone walls. Big part of what I do while this construction crew is here is to prepare for them, to stay ahead of them, to do things that facilitate their job later on so that they can be effective and more productive. And we seeded the corn, which is such an important crop in the homestead. We also received the new granite stone posts for the side entrance, and João was able to finish the wall to them, which turned out just gorgeous. One important element of the support infrastructure is the cellar for root crops storage as well as for the wine. So I started preparing to put in ceiling floor, so for the second floor, ceiling for the cellar. And João prepared the wall for the concrete beams. In the meantime, the lumber for the roof structure of the lean-to arrived. I was able to continue working on that. I prepared the main beam for installing. This I needed some help with because the lumber is green and extremely heavy. So Luis had to come back with the excavator to help me install the main beam. He also took down a couple of walls for me. These walls were removed, one so that the interior space of the house could be opened up, and the other wall so that we could install a big glass panel to allow a lot of natural light into the space. We also removed the main entrance lintels temporarily so we could repair the wall and also end up raising the lintels to meet the final height of the walls. Once the guys were free from the work on the new outbuilding, we started digging for the footing of a new wall that we are going to build that will connect
the two houses will essentially turn the two houses into one house. And with the help of a local carpenter, I got the lean-to wooden roof structure completed. By June, we had the new outbuilding ready, a key piece of support infrastructure for the homestead. This multi-function space will house a garden shed, a workshop, and a power room where the battery banks, the inverters, and all the other equipment for the photovoltaic electricity generating equipment will go. The back end of it is where the bird run and the hen houses is. There is 5 separate bird houses for various species. The access to the bird run is from the front end, and on the back end of it, there's an extra space for storing various farming implements and equipment. It had been a few months since I started the rebuilding of the lean-to. And with the roof structure complete, it was just a matter of installing the clay roofing tiles. It took me a whole weekend, but I saw it through. It was a sight to be seen. It had been many decades since it had a roof. And with the cellar, second floor, ceiling floor complete, I went back to cleaning the walls of the house. And what did I find? The old bread oven. My grandmother's bread oven. Oh, the memories of my childhood. Oh, the memories of that famous cornbread of hers. How many loaves had been baked here week after week. Well, I set out to take it apart so I can rebuild it later on. When the guys are working with me, my time is generally divided between the more technical aspects of the work and helping them doing general things, preparing ahead of time, a little bit of gardening, always pushing to get the land back to work. But lately, because my housing arrangement is coming to an end and I can't find a place to rent, my region has seen an influx of immigration in the last few years that basically left the rental market with no inventory. So I'm still looking, but I haven't found anything. So I decided that I will put a tent up in the property so that I can have a place to stay, and it's right at the homestead. I don't have to travel back and forth. Of course, the winter here is a little rough, and I'm still hoping that I will find a place to rent for at least the winter months, but I really don't know. So for now, the tent is the thing to do. After the new outbuilding was complete, I kept 3 of the guys from the crew, 2 stonemasons and 1 general helper. I really enjoy working with these guys. They take a lot of pride in what they do, and I really
appreciate what they bring in, their insight and their suggestions. The work mainly focused on raising the old wine cellar wall and creating the front wall where the kitchen is going to be and a new window. We also poured the concrete base for the future gravity irrigation tank because we had word that the granite stone was on its way. After the local sawmill cut a lumber for the tent pad and deck, I proceeded with the setting up. The terrain here where I'm building it is pretty uneven. It took me quite a few days to level all the pier blocks. In the meantime, the stone for the gravity irrigation tank arrived. João and Aniceto finished the work on the new walls, the western facing and the new kitchen wall. And next, we'll be working on the patio retaining wall. While Aniceto worked on the patio retaining wall, we cleaned up around, and João prepared to get the lintels back up on the main entranceway. He had to make new stones in order to match the old stones so we could raise the lintel back up on top to match the height of the house. Of course, for that we had to get Luis back with the excavator. Those lintels are not just heavy, they're very big, and installing them had to be an exercise in finesse, because the wrong move and you can break those stones. And while Luis was over with the excavator, we already had the stone, so we assembled the gravity irrigation tank.
And this is where we are at 8 months. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like, and if you want to continue on this journey with me, don't forget to subscribe. Thank you.